This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, go ahead.
My project is called Point in Time Insights, Street Level Homelessness in the City of Dallas. Thank you all for joining me today. It's good to see you this afternoon. Outstanding job, guys. Thank you so much. And I am approaching this from a client perspective and also as a former member of corporate America and also as a part of the labor force on what I have evaluated as an issue that is really dominant in Dallas, Texas, more so than any place else. So I hope that you will follow along. First, I put this here because the issue at hand is poverty. And the cycle for poverty, it starts here. If you go from here, when a child grows up in poverty, then they become significantly disadvantaged in education and skills. Then it creates a cycle where they struggle to get a job and they fail to escape the poverty cycle. Thus, they become a family in poverty. Then it becomes a generational issue. And this is happening quite a bit in the city of Dallas. My outline, I chose Batman watching over the city because that's the advantage that I've kind of taken being in the night and observing the things that I've seen. I've seen things on the train, I've seen things on the bus, I've seen on the street, on the curb, in the bushes. I haven't been in the bushes, but I've seen people suddenly come up out of the bushes that you didn't think were there. People living under bridges, people living under tunnels, people living along the side of the train tracks and building little tent cities. But because I'm also technical, my eyesight, when I was looking at it, I was looking at it from a technology perspective. How did they get here? How are they being tracked? How are we working towards ending this? You can't end poverty, but you can change the people who are being a part of the cycle. And that's my approach in this. So I looked at how they were getting their data and what was the quality of the data. And my observations made me think a little bit deeper, like I need to support this. I need to back this up. I need to be able to prove that I know that my observations are not just in my head, but they're real and they're genuine. So I found the housing management information system. It's kind of antiquated, but it's a legacy system that keeps getting upgraded. And they keep upgrading it, but it's still, I think that as students of Divergence Academy, that's something maybe we can work on, that we can find a way to help them better gauge the quality of the data that they're collecting. So I'm looking at the data collection process, the data quality, the types of continuum of care, and the families that are in poverty. Some of them are first, second, third generational. And the children that are growing up in these cycles, I had an opportunity to speak with a young woman who is a second generation shelter person, where she and her mom lived in the shelter, and now she's back in the shelter and she has 2 children. Also, I'm looking at it from the federal level, the state and the city level, and my summary is that poverty is a business. It's big money in poverty. And it's a social issue, it's a corporate issue, and then I'll take your questions towards the end. I put this data quality model in here because since we're all students of machine learning, it's important that we have good data. You guys all talked about that the quality of the data that you were looking for your project. So data quality is an issue in the homeless population. But it's not just in the homeless population, because this data gets fed into all the different services. It gets fed into the hospital system. It gets fed into the government system, the housing system. All of this, the data is being procured by other entities, by other organizations. So the business of homelessness is huge. So data integrity and having consistent data, complete data, these are 2 areas where I believe in the homeless population is an issue, is that the data is incomplete and it's inconsistent. Where you might run into Joe Bob on the train when he goes to the shelter and he needs to be housed, and they say, okay, what's your first name, Joe Bob? But in reality, it could be his alter ego. Literally, 95% of the people in the homeless population are suffering with some form of mental illness, either through drugs, alcohol, or trauma. And the trauma can be from child abuse, it can be from the veteran who went off to war and came back, and they weren't the same. And now they prefer to live on the streets because it's uncomfortable to live at home. Poverty is big business. So I looked at the point in time report. This is a snapshot where they look at the sheltered and the unsheltered. They look at how many people were served on a single night. And Ben Carson is in charge of HUD. Now, this is at the government level. And this legacy system is created by HUD. They do updates just like we would enhancements, but it's internal. But the structure of it is a legacy system, and they're just stacking on top of it. They're trying to like patch it through service packs, through enhancements, because I could not find in the true data elements. I looked at all of the data elements. When I tell you I looked at all the data elements, and I looked, and then I came up with the annual housing performance report. It's online, and it's a conflict between what they're reporting versus what they're collecting. So there's a lot of subjectivity in the data. There's a lot of derived data. You know, we talk about that in data science about deriving data. They are truly deriving a lot of the answers that they're putting in that report because it does not exist as such in the actual data elements of the file. So here's what I was talking about. This is actually from one of theirs where they go to conduct a client search, and it can be faulty due to a made-up name. Joe Bob might come in tomorrow and he's Teresa Faye, because you're encountering people who are dealing with sexual personality, and they're going through so many different changes, so many transitions. They're on medication, they may be overly medicated, and they may be having an altered experience. So you've got aliases, and then the use of temporary made-up names should not be an excuse for excessive de-identified clients. So you've got data duplication. You cannot dedupe their files because they're going by multiple names. Here in the continuum of care are some of the common data elements, and the UDE stands for Universal Data Elements. And if you can see here, these are the primary ones that they want to collect every time a person comes inside the system. They want to know their income, any non-cash benefits, health insurance, physical disability, development disability, chronic health condition, status on HIV and AIDS, mental health problems, substance abuse, domestic violence victims, who to contact in case of emergency, the date of the engagement at that shelter, and if they did an assessment disposition on them, and their exit. Now, if you look across the top, you see homelessness, you see permanent, rapid, supportive services, transitional. These categories indicate the individual that came into on this side are client specific, but are they chronically homeless? Are they permanently homeless? Are they in need of rapid rehousing, meaning that they really are at risk, so they need to hurry up and get them off the streets? Supportive services, do they need maternity care? Do they need mental health care? Do they need food stamps? Transitional, are they just in transition for a day or 2 or 3? Will determine as to whether or not this shelter will serve them. They will turn them away after sometimes standing in line for an hour. Old people in wheelchairs, without legs, infirm, will get turned away. And then they get discouraged, and sometimes they will just sleep on the ground outside of the shelter because they can't get in. So there's so many different things that happen here. So generational poverty cycle, most of the people that I got a chance to evaluate and talk to were people who were second generation homeless. And the biggest thing that I found is that they were hopeless that they were going to be able to get out of this cycle, that they were going to be able to change and have a better life. And they go from survival mode instead of planning. And survival mode is very reactionary, and then you see values and patterns have an impact on them being homeless. Okay. So then you get into the emotional state of someone who's been in poverty. You've got them who are dealing with educational poverty. Most of them have dropped out of school. They're high school dropouts. Some didn't even go to high school. I was amazed at some people who are working and they say, well, I got this job because I lied. And I told them that I had my high school diploma. So what does that say about the HR system? The HR system is supposed to audit. They're supposed to validate whether or not these people have actually gotten education. I used to work in HR, so I know that you're supposed to validate whether they've actually gone to high school or not. So that says that somebody is either overlooking it or they just don't have a good system. And I'm not going to tell you the organization that did that. But anyway, the parental poverty, if the parents are always in poverty trying to survive, spiritual poverty, where they don't have a sense of direction, they aren't looking to anything or anyone who is greater than themselves for guidance. And the cumulative effect of those is that there are different forms of poverty that come out of that hopelessness. And one of the key factors in creating the cycle is one generation to the next without hope and the belief better, the motivation and energy needed to break the cycle, lethargic, mentally, emotionally, and physically, because they're tired. They're tired. You know, the repetitive cycle of trying to survive and trying to find resources and tools is very draining. So they move into survival. They do this, everything is urgent. Right? They will get in front of somebody, they will break in front of somebody, fight in line, they will fight over food, they will fight over things like me. I need this. You don't need this any more than I do. So in generational poverty, then it becomes counterproductive because from one generation to the next, they see mama didn't get out, so I'm not going to get out. So I'm just going to be just like my mom, be just like my dad. And that kind of makes it sad. So at the federal level, I started to look at how is it that these people are going to get out of this when a lot of them would walk by me and be excited to get a job paying $10 an hour, $12 an hour. What can you do with that? You're going to get a job and you're going to need housing assistance. You're going to have to go to Section 8. You're going to have to go to the city. You're going to have to go somewhere because you cannot survive on $10 an hour. With or without children, you cannot do it. So here in Texas, and I specifically looked in the state of Texas, the top 5%, the average household income is almost $350,000. The bottom 20% are making $11,873 a year. And that's almost what somebody's making in a month, the top 5%. So the economics of poverty, you can see the more people that you add onto, this is what the government is saying, these are your income limits. If there's 3 people in your house, you should be making no more than $19,105 to be considered in poverty. And if there are 8 people, $41,781, 9 or more people are supposed to be able to survive on $50,000, according to the state of Texas. So then you come here, now you've got the working poor wage, okay? So here is breaking it down by color, and this again is Texas. You got white, Hispanic, Black, Asian, American, and you see how many are right here at $15 an hour. 60, a little bit close to 63% of the population, and these are people in the Hispanic category making $15 an hour, and 48% Hispanic making $12 an hour. Then when you break it down between men and women, you see the difference in the wage. You have 2 million women making $12 an hour. Close to 3 million women making $15 an hour, but then you have men making 30% of those men. And then you have here 42.8% making $15 an hour. So the economics and the business of poverty is real. You see more women in the city of Dallas who have more children. They come into the system pregnant already, and they come in with babies and toddlers and teens. And the HUD number for Dallas is number 113. The median income in Dallas, Texas is $83,100. but the state of Texas expects 9 people to be able to live on less than $50,000. So you've got the very low income limits, the extremely low income limit, and then the low income limit. And based on where you fall in here will depend on the kinds of services that you will get and the urgency in which those services will be provided to you. So forms of poverty, we have absolute, relative, working poor, and abject poverty. Absolute poverty refers to a condition where a person does not have the minimum amount of income needed to meet the minimum requirements for one or more basic living needs over an extended period of time. So relative poverty is a condition in which people lack the minimum amount of income needed in order to maintain the average standard of living in the society in which they live. The working poor are people who spend 27 weeks, that's almost 6 months out of the year, looking for a better job so that they can get out of the low income level. Then abject poverty are the people who cannot even imagine getting out. So they deal with the humiliation and they deal with the misery of it. And it just becomes life to them. And that's how they live. And so then they go and then they say, okay, well, I can't get help, and they don't expect to get help. But when you look at a family whose median income is $83,100, but the more people you add to that $83,100, I remember having a friend in IT who was a developer. He was making close to $100,000, but he had like 6 or 7 people in his house. And my friend was Indian. Most of my coworkers are Indian. And he said to me, people think, my family thinks I'm making a lot of money, but I have all these people that I'm trying to support. So to him, I get now why he felt like he was living in poverty. Even though he was making a decent wage, he had more people depending on him. And this is the case where you see 8 people, $87,800, and he was barely over $90,000 as a developer. He was in poverty. His reality is being borne out by this. And these are legitimate statistics here. So in summary, I'm looking at it as a client from the street level and what I believe is corporate social responsibility. Here you can look at the demographic characteristics of most homeless individuals. It talks about under 18 to 24, there are so many kids on the streets, teenagers on the street, and a lot of them on the street because of their sexuality. And that's sad. A lot of parents have turned their children out of their homes because of their sexuality. Okay, we'll stop. So you have under 18, you have 18 to 24, you have over 24. When you look at the characteristic going down from male, female, transgender, gender non-conforming, ethnicity, non-Hispanic, Latina, Hispanic, Latina, race is broken out like this. Now, here is what's interesting in this demographic chart is that if you go back and look at the legacy system of HMIS, you will not find a category for Hispanic. You will not find a category for Native American, and you will not find a category for multiple races. When I say category, a data element. So literally everybody gets thrown into white, African American, or Black, Asian, or Pacific Islander. And I know this from experiences that during an intake, a woman was asked what was her ethnicity. She said that she was Mexican. And when asked her race, she said she was white. Now, the Mexican population is not getting represented. The Indian American population is not getting represented. And the Indians who are coming from Asia, I encountered again at another shelter a woman who was clearly Middle Eastern, and she was having a psychotic break. I don't know where that woman is. I haven't seen her, heard from her again. Women are coming over and they're getting married, within the Indian community, and they're being divorced as soon as they get to the States, and they're being just dropped off at motels and hotels with nothing. And these women are ending up out here just lost in the population. So the business of poverty is something that is real and it needs to be tracked. So here in Texas, I chose total people experiencing chronic homelessness to look at. And in Texas, we are pretty high up there. There's 3,404 people. Of those people, you can't really define what category they belong to correctly because of bad information that's being given. So then total people in Texas, Now, you want me to go back to the other one, but here in Texas, 25,310 people in Texas total experiencing homelessness. Look at the rest of the states. Why is that? So when I go into my my other presentation, I want you to understand that you don't. I wish that I could have printed these out so you could have had them. But these are the definitions that you'll see that they're just like maybe 3 letters represented. But in the continuum of care, these are the organizations throughout the city, the county, and the entire state that are servicing this population. So you've got the chronically homeless is represented as CHI. You've got CHP, and you've got RR, and you've got the veteran, and you've got SH, and shelter homeless, and then just called safe haven, and then parenting children who are under the age of 25 who are also parents. Then you have the ES, emergency shelter, and every one of them have different populations that they serve. Not every shelter serves the same population because they all have different criteria. So looking at the report, the housing inventory count, and then there's one called point in time count, and I might have left that off, and I apologize. But parenting youth, household unaccompanied homeless youth, are people under 18 in households with only children who are not a part of a family. People who have come together because they can't make it by themselves, and they come together to form their own unique family. Okay. So why I chose this, because I believe it's a corporate responsibility. I'm not saying that corporate America needs to end that, but a lot of these people are falling out of corporate America either as blue collar workers, white collar workers, because of a trial or something happened in their lives. So if the employee assistance programs were more engaged with their employees and they took more interest in them, perhaps they could keep them from dropping to that level, letting the bottom drop out, coming alongside of them and saying, okay, do you need some help? Letting them come and say, hey, you know, I've got an issue going on. I believe that some of this could be prevented. They need town halls versus going to city council and other ways to engage people. And I know, for instance, in corporate America, they get together and they have all these different meetings. Maybe they need to take just bring in the employees and ask them how they're doing. Consider making donations to Grassroots United Way when you were in corporate America, and they says if you give this much, we'll match. Well, then that takes the onus off. Like we're donating money, but they don't really know where this money is going. They're not dictating where the money goes. They're just giving it and just turning a blind eye. Then
All right, keep going.
okay, so my agenda for giving America's working poor a raise would be to raise the federal minimum wage, provide access to earned sick leave, protect overtime pay for millions of workers, and expand the earned income tax credit. And any questions?
So this is deep. Thank you for sharing. A lot of information. We also used Power BI.
Mm-hmm.
All this.
I wanted to.
Okay.
I didn't get it all in there.
Okay.
But I tried.
So you have an audience here of technologists. I heard you clearly say good quality of data can improve decision making. Who's willing to hear all the issues that you raised with aliases, the names, and people hiding their identity when they get to abject poverty? How do we get this level of insight back to Ben Carson?
It's not at the service provider level, because I've tried to have conversations and they're set in their ways. They believe that they have the answers. They believe that the way that they're doing it is the best way to do it. For me, I believe people who are in corporate America, who are at a high enough level to reach Ben Carson, to reach the representatives, to reach the legislation, is where it needs to start. Because if it's not pushed down by law, then it won't happen.
So you
And
don't
then
want bottom up, you want top down.
top down, because it's not something that can be solved down here. Because everybody who, it could mean that there are some people that I believe have too many people on their payroll. They're not effective in what they're doing. And so I believe that some of the money that's being going towards maybe salary should be redirected somewhere else.
So this is a complex system, and it cannot be just solved with
Mhm.
artificial intelligence or machine learning. It could be contributing to automation that can help, but I don't think it gets solved by automation alone.
What I would like to say on that, with the machine learning, with getting a program that would ingest the existing data that's out there, because the data sets are out there.
Okay.
They're being published on HUD, and I think they just put out something for 2020 of what they're expecting people to do and to collect. So the information is on the web. It's out there. Some places you do have to sign up, but they're not really charging you to sign up. They just want to know who's looking at this data.
Sure.
And I believe that a model needs to be fed to give them the proof, not based on objectivity by observing, but by the data that they've already created. Prove it to them. Sure. That what they're doing and the way they're doing it is not working. You know, it's like a Band-Aid, it's a patch. And in order to actually break it down to them, you're going to have to use their information to prove it to them. And then that's when I believe if a model can be built and then taken to the state of Texas is, what's amazing is that the state of Texas is outside of HUD, especially Dallas. Everybody reports to HUD directly to HUD except for Dallas. Okay. Very, because I've done the digging, I've done the looking, and Dallas is outside of the box. And they report their information, but as far as the control and how things are done, it is not. It is what Dallas does, what Dallas says. So it's almost as if we are a separate country outside of the system. So coming to Dallas, they're not going to hear you. It has to go past Texas even. You saw how large Texas is with homeless population. It has to go past Texas. It needs to go all the way up and come from the top down. And then Dallas would probably still object, but at least the other states would get the help, and maybe it will trickle in to Dallas. But it's a huge problem, and there is a lot of possibilities for a lot of things to happen to be a part of that solution. And all I can say is, after having been a client, I believe that there's a reason why that I saw what I saw and I observed what I observed, is because I believe there is a need for a better solution than what they already have.
Okay. So you're advocating use data to assist decision-making, policy, law at the top level, because bottom-up is never going to work. And you got to have great insights using graph analysis, time series, blah, 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 anything that automation or machine learning models can project onto a population, maps, visualization, to use that to deliver potential
Loopholes and gaps.
Okay.
Yeah, because the only way that you're going to get them to hear is that you're going to have to use their data. Sure. Not against them, but to persuade them. Sure. That, look, you've got these gaps, you've got these loopholes, and this is how we can say this can be closed.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Any questions? There's a question here.
Yes. So, as a technologist, that sometimes data can be painted a certain way when it's not really meant to look like that. are there some of the stigmas behind the situations that these homeless individuals are facing, like mental illness, play into how this data is collected?
It's huge. How it plays in is really subjective because it's up to the person who's collecting the data to not be biased. There's a lot of bias in this data. There's a lot of bias in the services that are being provided to the people. And that you can't change someone's heart. You can't change someone's heart. And a friend of mine told me this, and he's a data scientist a while back, and he told me, he says, Patricia, people only do what they're legislated to do. And that's the only way that it's going to change, is that we have to present a model at the legislative level that will take their own data and show them, hey, you know, the money that you're passing on to these organizations needs to be audited better, needs to be modeled and monitored better. And you need to evaluate, because I saw people on payroll that God knows that if I was HR, you know, would just like, no, because they're just hiring people, you know, as fillers almost, and paying them to be mean and obtrusive to people. You can't get into a shelter without a full, almost a full body search. And it's okay, because some of them come in, they're mad at somebody who did something to them, and they come in with knives, they come in with all kinds of things that they can make weapons with, and it would be a bloody mess if they were not doing that. But sometimes you can have 4 or 5 people screening almost one bag, and that's just ridiculous. It's like, why do you need 4 or 5 people to screen one bag?
Now, what are we looking at here on the screen?
Here, these are beds, and the HH, remember I told you, it's like head of household. These are people who are actually familially related to these individuals with children, and this is by COC. So you got Houston and Pasadena, and this is, I'm sorry, that's cut off. I need to raise that up. But,
Let's see downstairs.
okay, you got it? Yeah, okay. So now you've got Texas, the balance of the state, and then you've got San Antonio, Bexar County, Dallas City and County, and it's also including Irving. And then you have Fort Worth, Arlington, and Tarrant County. So if I hover over this, you can't see that, can you? Oh, okay. So Dallas City and County and Irving, because Irving is a part of Dallas County, yeah. So they've included them in there. And then you've got Fort Worth, Arlington, and Tarrant County. And then you've got Austin, Travis County, El Paso City and County, Amarillo, Waco and McLennan County, and Wichita Falls, Wise, Palo Pinto, Wichita, Archer counties, and Bryan, College Station, Brazos Valley. And these are 6,000 is over here on this axis, and all the way from 0 to 6,000. So the highest right now is in Houston. Houston has a great website, absolutely great website. I don't know how real their data is, given that they're using Tableau and they're using a lot of data visualizations. So I don't know if it's derived or it's actual data. So validating the data, that's what I'm talking about, the data quality. Because if you look at what's being reported here and you look at the annual, it's called the Annual Housing Appraisal Report, AHAR. What they put in that is so pretty. It makes you want to just go in your pocket and just give. But I question that report, because how can they come up with that without them subjectively or biasly deriving that information?
Yeah, walk us through your other tabs.
Okay, so this one, the PIT is point in time count by project, and this is specifically Dallas and targeting the population A. So you've got HCSF, and you see this sheltered family,
Sure.
okay, and then SM, SMF, and across. So you've got, these are some of the shelters that are in Dallas. You've got Bash, you've got Austin Street, you've got Union Gospel, you've got The Bridge, you've got leasing, you've got Shelter Plus Care, Home Again, Men's Emergency Shelter Transitional Program, Individual Destination, PBV, Cedar Crest, Samaritan Inn, and just on like that. So these are the shelters that are specifically in Dallas. And this is talking about during taking a snapshot, a point in time of how many people they actually served based on category. And then for the number of veterans that they served, it shows here the total. So for VASH, they had 838 beds and they used 838 beds.
So
When this
Patricia,
snapshot was taken.
would you be publishing this dashboard somewhere online?
I'd like to.
Okay, all right. The Power BI dashboard available on a website that you can link.
There is.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
upload it to Office 365, Power BI.
What tools did you use to generate these tables and graphs?
Power BI.
You did use Power BI. Cool. Very nice.
Did you like my template?
I do.
I designed it myself, and I put Batman in the middle. You just can't barely see him, but he's watching.
He's hiding behind that.
Yeah, but he's watching.
All right.
Okay.
No, thank you. This is awesome. I think what you need is a public website that you can upload your dashboard to, and you can link it and talk about it. I think you've done a wonderful job putting the context here, and this video will be available. You can share, so you don't have to repeat. Right? And go loud, make it big. I think it needs more people to be hearing this, not just 8-10 people. Technology solutions, but we do not have the connection. Well done. Thank you so much.
Did you see that with our phones? She's been recording this the whole time. Like really, really good.